Hello, Internet. Today we're going to have fun. I'm telling you, we're going to have fun. Right, I've got a question for you. When you went up to the operational area to do your bush tours, who did you make friends with first? Now, you might have been flying, in my case, flying crew, even before that, ground crew. Two people you make friends with first. And the order can vary because sometimes you meet the one before you meet the other. But the first one you make friends with is the barman, so that you can get smokkel drank uit die bulk store uit after hours. And the other one is the chief chef. You'll know why, because otherwise you're going to eat shit. I mean, sorry, I didn't say that, but you're going to eat not such pleasant food, and you'll never get a few steaks to go and braai on your own. So today we're going to hear stories from the second angle. We have Chef Zane Beswick here with us, and he's just told me that he's of the very first Beswicks in this world of ours. He can tell the story. So I'm going to say, welcome, your Chef. Go for it. You tell us your stories, please. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us, and we appreciate it. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Morning, Fossey. How's it? Yeah, yes, and congratulations on this legacy. It's a brilliant program. Yeah, I'm Zane Beswick. I'm the eldest of 5 siblings. My dad being British, he was basic when he came over. However, because they didn't spell his name properly, he decided to pronounce the W, and so then we became the Beswicks anyway. So, and which is my aunt in the UK, she latched onto that and she enjoyed the Beswick pronunciation. Yeah, and he married a Namakwaland lady from Okip, and they bore 5 of us, and I'm the eldest of 5 siblings. My dad's industry was drilling industry, so I was all over the country. So I went to 7 different schools basically, and yeah, started off in a place called Nababip and Swakopmund, and Messina, finished off in Benoni at Wordsworth High School. I had an ambition of becoming probably a fighter of sorts for this country. It was awakened when, I'm sure, during the period of Savannah in 1976, we were on our way to school from, we lived in a place called Rossing, which is just outside Swakopmund, and there was an English school that had just opened up in Veneta. Now, when I started school in Swakop, in sub B or grade 2, there was an English, Afrikaans, and German. It was in one big school. It was the old school in Swakop, and then they opened up the English school in Veneta. And I remember the one morning going past the police station. When we'd go from Swakop to Veneta, you'd go past the police station on the right-hand side, if I remember correctly. And there were these there were these security camouflaged vehicles, and being part of the news, I always spent a lot of time with the old man discussing news, and from a very young age, I was into politics, African politics for that matter, and history, I suppose, in a sense. And that's when I sworn allegiance to this country, to die for this country one day. Anyway, well, to fight for it, because I was in love with Namibia. I remember leaving Namibia. 2 years later, I was in tears. We moved up to a place called Messina, which is right on the border with Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and became housemates with a guy called, I think, Orman Powers. I think he was the commander. He was an English guy. But, the English, my dad being British and him being British, they would all hang together. And this also sort of had a great influence on me. I was very keen on pursuing a career in the military, for that matter. However, in 1985, during my matric, a cousin and I, whenever we got together, this cousin and I, we'd cause the biggest load of shit. We'd do trouble. We would cause trouble. We were always caught stealing fruit, or we were doing some type of mischief. And we never saw each other that often, but whenever we got together, there was problems. And this time, joyride turned into a catastrophe. I ended up flying through the windscreen of the car that we borrowed. So I landed up in a coma in 1985 doing my matric exam. So, and my initial call-ups was, that year my call-ups was for one South African infantry. Yeah, it was a serious accident. I lost my stomach had burst and my spleen had burst and everything had burst and my lungs were buggered and everything. So upon recovery, we'd also been, well, we were also housemates with the CID chief of Ndongwe at the time. And we'd also, and we'd have a lot of some of the guys coming from the security forces, security police, would often join Jason down in South Africa for R&R, and you'd see what the war was doing to them. And so upon me recovering from my accident, my dad took me aside. Now, look, it's taken a lot of toll on the parents, on the family, harshly. I didn't realize it, and I still feel guilty about it today. The dad said to me, he says, look, you're going to go to the army now shortly. He says, take the safe route, don't go anywhere. He says, you can't put your mother through this again, blah, blah, blah. So, and anyway, so then I changed my career path. I was going into hotel management. Hotel management was my choice. It was law or hotel management, and I went into hotel management. And to get into Smith Street, I think Smith Street was the only hotel school at the time, which hotel school in Smith Street, and my marks weren't good enough, so I had to get some experience. And staying out in the plots, you never got into restaurants. You couldn't go into, unless you had to depend on the parents to take you. Look, I had the car, but I mean, I was still too young for license, etc. Anyway, so then I thought, okay, well, then the best way to getting into the hotel industry was to get into the kitchen. Ideally, you wanted to go, what the Defence Force was offering you was chefs and club management. If you became a lieutenant, you could become a club manager, or you could go carry on with the chefs. So on the 2nd of February 1987, I reported to Starrick Park and got onto the train. I think it was a 8-hour train trip from Starrick Park to Pretoria, and the train stopping, and all the shades had to be dropped on the railway carriages because of unrest and people throwing petrol bombs, etc. So it would get hot in that train. Anyway, so we landed up at the Joburg Pretoria station, jumped onto Samuels, and then, well, we put onto Samuels, and then a roofie ride all the way to Elandsfontein, which is between, I think, Rustenburg and Pretoria, at the sticks there. We're close to the Arms Corps. I would later find out, close to the Arms Corps grounds, where they would do the testing of the vehicles, the tanks, etc. It was in that area. So we got, screaming and shouting, not going, you don't know your bearings. And it's the biggest insects in the world that we've ever seen. It was these big stick insects, and they were all over the place, and you don't know where you are. Anyway, so got into Elandsfontein. The bungalows was prefab, and I didn't like that place. It was dusty, it was dirty, and there was just screaming and shouting, yah, yah, yah. It was overalls. We go for haircuts, the shortest haircuts. I remember my friend Ike and I, we came out from work. He was with me at school, came with me to Elandsfontein. When he came out of that haircut, I didn't recognize him except for his glasses. His hair was so short. My hair was as short as that, because we had this big curly bush hair. Anyway, so so then, as you know, when you car in, okay, so you got your trommel, and you got your tackies, and you've got your overall, and everything is too big, and everything is dusty, and everything's got to stay clean, and it's mud, it's dust, it's dirty, it's all the time, constantly, and it's sweat. And you're standing inspections every morning. And so the one morning, probably about a third week into basics, or into Elandsfontein, the corporal comes in there and he says, "Manne, julle het hierdie inspectie geslaag. And I say, brilliant, Corporal. And there, I put my foot into it. He turns around and says, Moenie wind gaat raak nie. I said, sorry, Corporal. I said, you're back. Okay, so, but now you're pleased because you've been battling just to impress this Corporal, and nothing seems to impress him. And anyway, so I think he was one of twins. There were two of them. Anyway, so we're doing our exercises, or whatever we were doing that day, and all of a sudden I get told to go clear on with my kit, everything. I was going to stand on the parade ground. And I say, the rest of the guys, he says, nee, ek praat met jou, gaan. So I go. So I think there was a bit of a issue there between the two of us, which I didn't know. I was always the guy in a good spirit. I'd always be, I like making fun. I like making jokes. I like laughing. I don't really like. I never get too serious. And I think a lot of the corporals they didn't have that type of vision anyway. So I said, "Where am I going?" He says, "You're going for another medical checkup." I said, "Oh, shit, okay." So I jump in. Now, in the meantime, due to my accident, I don't have a spleen, and I've got this big scar on the front of me. So. I got G1K1 when I went for the medical checkup at Voortrekker. So I said, well, they said I'm G1K. He says, just go. And I said, so I go stand on the parade ground, and there's a bunch of the guys that come to stand. I said, do you know what's happening? They said, no. So I remember the Alweida buses, those military buses. They rock up there, and the corporal says, come, so where are we going? He says, I told you going for a medical checkup. So we're on the bus, and look, I know my bearings pretty well. I mean, I always traveled a lot with my dad. So I knew roads. I knew the roads pretty well. I knew the country pretty well. I knew locations pretty, I'd spend where my sisters would sit and read books whilst the dad was reading. I'd be out of the window, recognizing places. That's what I would do. Anyway, so we jump on this bus, and this bus starts driving and driving and driving. And then when I saw we're going past Midrand, and we're going past Joburg, I said, hey, there's no way that we're going for another medical checkup. Anyway, so the next minute, when the bus stopped, probably about 11 o'clock that night, stopped at 1 SSB Bloemfontein, and it said, welcome to 1 Special Services Battalion Bloemfontein. And I was happy. I was happy. It had a great welcoming. I thought, now I can pursue my, go back well, let's just see what the army gods have for me, as far as my, anyway. So I got to 1 SSB, met a Corporal Grobler, probably the nicest guy I ever met in the Mach. Anyway, great. He was a camper, great guy, and they set us up there. So we did our basics. I did my basics at 1 SSB. Towards the end of basics, or just before, after when we did our basics, I did my checkout, my chlor-out with basics, got all that, and then came back. And then I think we were being divided into our musketries, and then all of a sudden, I think there was a measles that broke out in 1 SSB at the time. And so I was sent into isolation with a bunch of guys that got fraught on my supercol all the time. And we were there, and then 10 days later, 2 weeks later, we come out of this isolation, and everybody else, now the whole bungalow, all our friends, everybody had gone into their different divisions now. So Sergeant Major Lawrence, another man I have the world of respect for, a great guy. He said, no, is he really space and leader? I said, well, I come from there, And he said, okay, you'll come up with train for night. So that was me. I got back onto the train that night, and they sent us back to, they sent us, put us on a train, and they sent us back up to Pretoria on the train. There was about 4 or 5 of us. But just before I left SSB, when I saw, I used to when my dad spent some time, well, my parents lived in Uppington at a time as well, and I was at boarding school in Kimberley. And then I would come out, he would drive out to Rospina and Scorpion out in southern Namibia, because he had a couple of drills out that way. And as you came out of Uppington, you'd have these guys running this, I think it's 8 side, the infantry in Uppington, and you'd have these guys running in the heat of the day, running on that highway. and I'm just thinking, I'm thanking my lucky stars for not sending me to infantry, because I wouldn't have been able to handle it right. Look, yes, I could run at school, I was fit, etc., etc. But then saying that, I mean, our at the Brug for that matter, and in Tempe, wherever the SSB guys would be, say for example, driving in the back of Samuels, the Parabats guys would be, they would do double cross and they would be jogging, and infantry guys would be walking with their water bottles. So yeah, so that was, and lots of respect to those battalions. I remember I wanted to play rugby there in Bloemfontein, and then if I saw the size of these rugby players, I think Helgard Miller, South African Springbok, was amongst those boys. School of Armour. There was a Major Williamson and Captain Thompson. And I remember we had there was a rugby match between SSB or School of Armour and the Parabats, and no sooner had that game kicked off when there was a scrum, and I saw my major just lying on the ground and just kicked one of these Parabats, and all of a sudden there was just a big Barney. They called off the match immediately, and that was it. Yes, I like that. I enjoyed. That's what I had a lot of respect for SSB. Anyway, but then the next minute I'm on a train, I'm going back to Pretoria. I get back to Elandsfontein. I'm there for 2 weeks. Okay, now the school of chefs. Okay, what we did was when you get there, they've got different kitchens, and every kitchen concentrates on a different division of the kitchen of food that you prepare. For example, the baking, the food preparation, the fish, the meat, etc., etc. So you would do all that, and then when a base would come up, and then you would find out they needed chefs at whatever base, then you get transferred there. But I was under the impression, I think I was supposed to go back to 1 SSB to go into the kitchen there. Oh yes, by the way, my medical, when I got to SSB, they put me on a medical, and then I was classified as G1K3. And it was only later, about 10 years ago, that I found out what K3. I told you about Martin Verstaer. He told me that one day we were discussing things about days in the Mach, and he said the K3 means temperature. I can't take high temperatures anyway. So that was, so I wouldn't have made it into the tanks or into those, as much as I'd like to have stayed there, as long as there was, and as much as there was so much honor involved with, I mean, if you looked at the amount of awards, if you looked at the museum of SSB, you couldn't help but feel very, very proud of being part of it. I was in Delta Squadron, then there was Charlie Squadron, and I believe that Delta Squadron was most of the Delta Squadron, where they were for ondersteuning in any case, and then in the camp. And then the fighting squadron would be Charlie Squadron. They would be trained for the fighting. So anyway, so I'm back at Elandsfontein, and so we did our different divisions. I'm busy. I think it was the 3rd week I was up there, and I didn't enjoy Elandsfontein at all. However, saying that, there was a Sergeant Engelbrecht. Now, he was the sharpest soldier I'd ever seen. Impeccably dressed, smart. He was great, and he was, I think he was the regimental adjutant officer there or something, but because he was pretty well in charge. But no, there was an RSM as well, but I think he was, anyway, so that was, but Sergeant, he used to take hold of the parade grounds and that. Anyway, so the one day, a couple of corporals walk into our kitchen and they say, Wonderboom. And that's when my hand went up. I knew exactly where Wonderboom is. Now, the rest of the folks didn't know where Wonderboom is. So I said, okay, I'll take Wonderboom. Okay, now I remember my home was in Benoni at the time, so it was quite close to home. So I landed up at Wonderboom Military Function Kitchen. probably towards, I think it was August of 1987. And then you would train the basics at Elandsfontein of how to cook, but you'd learn. Joe, who was a colored chef there, he taught me a lot more than what the catering school taught me. And then there was Sergeant Cesano, an Italian elderly man. He taught us a lot more about baking than catering. But anyway, but it was how you applied yourself. You could learn, and you did learn. So we were there, and we checked in in August, and that's where we started cooking. Now, I mentioned, well, probably on a note the one day when you discussed music. This is where music got me into trouble. It was probably about September or October. There was a guy called Brad Nokia, and he had a 12-string guitar. And we landed up in Brad's room. Now, you must, okay, just going back. Now, Wonderboom was like a 5-star hotel compared to all the other bases. I mean, you'd have, we lived in basically a flat. I mean, okay, you had a room with a basin and then the shower at the end of the corridor. We lived on the top floor. There was a pool at the bottom. We could swim in the pool. Every block had its own pool. There were even girls in that camp. There was great stuff. It was, okay, lady soldiers, they were there. There was lots. I mean, it was like paradise compared to all the other places I've been to. So yes, it was welcome to Wonderboom. So Brad and a couple of and he he brings out his 12-string and a bottle of vodka goes floating about. So we start singing some Beatles songs and some good 60s music, and we decided to record ourselves in this little tape deck. And as we're hollering away, you can hear now there's 4 of us that are singing, and all of a sudden, now listening to this tape later, you hear 2 of the voices disappear. Then you hear another voice disappear. Then you hear "Good evening, Sergeant." Then you hear the last voice disappears. And as I say, as that voice says "Good evening, Sergeant," you hear a string break on the guitar. So it comes in so well. Anyway, so we were taken on orders, and we all got 21 days suspended for 6 months or something like that. But now, being a chef, you could get rid of any DD1s after that, and which is an exercise I used pretty well, because I had a friend that was at the national NDP Reg, National Dienstpligtige Registrasie office, and whenever there was something floating about, a DD1 floating about, I'd say, "Shawnee, sort me out there, but it's going to cost you. I'll give you a cup, a good steak tonight, and probably some lekker chicken tomorrow night." He says, "No problem. A DD1 for a steak, there was no problem." And that's how we rolled. It was it was how we rolled. It was I mean, we'd be Jacqueline's. I think it was on a Wednesday night. Thursday night was Limelight. So because look, being a chef, you must remember our hours are long and it's early hours. So a lot of okay, besides our Sergeant Major Brewer, and then before him it was Sergeant Major Granzi. Anyway, but then Sergeant Major Brewer came in probably just very early in my stay at Wonderboom. And so very, very seldom you'd have anybody else bothering with the chefs because of our irregular hours that we work. I mean, we'd start work at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. You push through until 4 o'clock. You go back, you rest. You start the following day at 2 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You'd have different shifts. You'd have about, because that size of that kitchen. Now, Wonderboom military function kitchen was a vast kitchen. It was a massive kitchen. We would serve rooiwal. Was it rooiwal? Yeah, rooiwal, Boekenhoutskloof, Blenny. I think there were kosher boys from 44 battalion. Parabet Battalion. We would serve them. We would serve. We had the officers' mess, we had the NCO's mess, then we had the troop mess. Now the troop mess, you'd have your strength would vary from say 3,000 down to probably about 600 odd. They'd always vary depending on what the training was all about. So what stage of training that they were in. So and now I've heard these complaints about rubber eggs and powdered scrambled eggs, etc. That didn't exist. The only thing that we probably used, only thing that I used was powdered milk, and that was only when I did the bush exercises. And then, I mean, I would go do Valmansdal. I would go out to Valmansdal. There were a couple of sergeants that enjoyed my cooking, so they would call on. They would say, "We're having a field exercise. You would like that chef and that chef to come around," and then I'd be out there. As much as I volunteered to go up to the border, anywhere I could go, but Sergeant Major Brewer said no. He says they've got enough shit there; they don't need you there as well. So that was. So I'd do the field exercises. It was Valmansdal, and then there was another one that they do where the field exercises would be where the guys were doing their training, and that's where I would go and cook for them. It was on one of those occasions where also now this army what do you call it? The army guilt comes in, because you'd often see these lads disappear. Okay, they obviously go up to the border, and then they come back, and I felt sorry for them. I had a lot of empathy from youngsters, and guys coming back, and they would be gaunt eyes in a sense, and you couldn't talk to them. It was just, guys, welcome back. I'm pleased to see you guys. And then I landed up on one of these field exercises. I came in on a Sunday night. I had to come and cut bacon, so I cut my finger on the meat master down the middle, just slicing bacon. Anyway, so I took it to the doctor that were on duty that night, and he said, "No, forget about it. He says, take it, you'll be fine." So I took it down. It was down the center, down the center of my lengthways of my finger. So I got back on the truck. We went out to the bush. He bandaged it up. We took it back to the bush. The following morning, just after breakfast, there's the duty bucky. Duty bucky says, "You've got to get on the bucky. Get in the bucky." I said, "What for?" He says, "No, the doctor wants to see you again." So I said, "Okay, I'll go." So we went back in the duty bucky, got back to Wonderboom, and then another doctor that was there, he looked at it and he said, "Okay," he says, "take the next bus, the next bucky that went and dropped me off at 1 mil." And then I ended up I spent 14 days in 1 mil. Now here comes the revenge act, you see, because the guilt. I don't know why they did this, but I landed up in a ward of 3 guys. Okay. And okay, now the guy next to me, now here I am, I've got my finger, okay, up in the air, dripping. And the guy next to me had lost both his legs in a Victor. And the guy next to him was a major, and he'd also lost one of his legs. And he was called upon by a foreign, you could hear it, I think it was an American guy in a wheelchair that used to pop in there and come and say hi to him at nights. Then the ward next door to that one was another. So now I met a guy called. So now I met a guy called Don, who was a 3-2 battalion nationale dienstplichtige lieutenant. He had I think an anti-aircraft, anti-personnel gun off in his hands, and he lost his eyes. I'd seen a lot of, and that broke my tears, and it broke my heart to see these guys. Anyway, and the worst part of it all was then, now I'd be walking around with this drip, and I've got this finger in, like up here, and I'd say, "How's it? How are you doing?" And he said, "All right." And I say, "What happened to you?" He says, "No, landmine." Then the guy asks me, "What happened to you?" I say, Pinky, meat master. It wasn't a very comfortable feeling. It felt, anyway. So I spent 10 days in 1 mil, and then got my 14 days pass, and I recovery leave. So it was a long leave that I got there. But now going back to the kitchen, etc. we would start cooking at 4 o'clock in the morning. These troops. Now, these troops would have, and when you'd fry your egg. Okay, you wouldn't fry eggs until closer to serving time. Serving time being from about 6 o'clock in the morning. So you'd start frying your eggs, say, at 5:15. And now you're going to know there's like 1,000, say 2,000, 3,000 troops that are coming in for dinner. So you got different bain-maries. Now, bain-maries are these warm trays where the steam comes out. At the bottom of them, and then they would warm up. They would keep the food warm. So when you start frying eggs, now your eggs you'd have big tilt pans, which were about 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, 1 meter squared, and you'd have oil about that thick. Now you lay, and then you'd be issued with 2-3 boxes of eggs. Now there's about 150. It's 30. It's times 10. It's 300 eggs per box. So then you'd start frying these eggs, and then you would put them into trays. You put them on, and those trays would be lined out with bread slices, and then you would put them so that the bread would absorb the oil. Then these trays would be placed into the bain-maries. So when the troops came in, everything was warm. You'd have a porridge which was made, a millipap. So you had to start cooking early morning. You started doing your bacon, or there would be a meat step outs, which was the bully beef in a batter, or you'd have there was even a haddock that we would do for them. There was various different proteins involved, meat, which it was a balanced meal. It was good quality food that they received. Obviously, by the time if the guys are coming in at 7 o'clock after whatever they've been chased around by the corporal, by the time they get to those eggs that have been at the bottom of that bain-marie, and it's been warmed up for the last 45 minutes, they're going to be sort of all congealed. So you got to wait, and you couldn't take it back. So it's whatever. When it came to serving food, I tried to serve good food to all my. I couldn't call them my customers, but to all the guys that came out that I had to go and serve. Anyway, so yeah, that was my 2 years in the weather force of the Wehrmacht, or National Defense Force, and I clouded out at the end of 1988. They couldn't decide on what day we were going to clear out because of it kept on. There was always a delay of when we were going to clear out. I think there was activity up north, and as such, they were delaying the clear out date. But the biggest anticlimax in the army was not seeing your friends again. You had great friends, great experiences, and you never saw them again, and that's the sad part of it. Yes, I see it. There's one mate of mine, and I keep in touch with another. That's it's great camaraderie. Anyway, that was me.
Thanks, Zane. Okay, so we chatted slightly before we started the recording, and the question I have on my mind is, did that lead then directly to your chosen field for the rest of your life? Because I called you chef, and that's the way gentlemen call you guys, because so tell us a little bit more about, is that the reason why, or not, or did you decide food is the winner for you?
What happened was, okay, upon me leaving the army, I joined up, did in-house management, in-house management. What they did was, now that consisted of, you'd work a year, and every year you'd spend 6 weeks at the Technikon doing theory. It was that, rather doing it that way than doing it via hotel school as such. You'd also have a lot less people falling out of the bus because they'd be exposed to the industry immediately, and there was a lot of pressure involved. I mean, you had kids that had done 3 years at hotel school, and within the second week of being back at hotels, in a hotel environment, they'd say it's not for them. They couldn't handle the pressure. Yes, so I went into hotel management, and that consisted of, my first initial 3 months was in a kitchen. But because I'd been in the kitchen before, I was aware of it and I could handle it. However, I love the kitchen. I love the action. I love the pressure. I love the buzz. I love I like being busy, and I like the pressure. That's to me. There's no greater buzz in the world than a busy kitchen. Yeah. So yeah, and this is where also what we going back to Wonderboom for that matter. We do functions every weekend. Military public functions. People would rent it out as a venue, or the military would rent it out as a venue, and we do all the catering for them. And it was top quality. Our officers' mess also great food. It was probably the best experience. It was a good experience. Yeah.
Okay, Zane. So obviously you had chosen that line. You also told me that you're resident in Robertson in the Wynland. Lekker. So the naughty in me is coming out here. I grew up in the Belleville Valleys,
Okay.
Valleys. So went snook fishing and also had a bit of mutton farming. One of my cousins married a mutton farmer there in the Wellington area. Mutton and wine, by the way. So from a young age, I learned about cuisine. Ek praat nou baie bolly, maar what now these days? What do you think? No, not what do you think. What are your favorite dishes to prepare, or what do you specialize in?
What's happened. Look, okay. I was in the Wilderness Holiday Inn in 91. I was offered a job. There was one, Mr. Oswaldo. He was a man, an old, short Italian man. He was staying at the Wilderness Holiday Inn, and he approached me after his time. He was going to leave, and he approached me and he says, "Do you know what you're doing here?" I says, "Well, I was maitre d' at the time, and I was doing assistant in the F&B." And I said, "Yeah, I'm running my department." And he says, "No," he says, "I know." He says, "You're doing it very well." He says, "But you know what you're doing?" I said, "No." He says, "You're making another man rich." So I said, he says, "Come and see me in Cape Town." So I went down to see him, and then he took me to the Cameron restaurant in Stellenbosch, which is Italian. And then we had lunch there, and he says, "Can you run this place?" I said, "Yeah, I can do it." I enjoy it. It's a challenge. It's great. Just then, my parents had come down. The gold price had died, and my mom and dad were coming. They came down with my brothers and my sisters. And they were in Cape Town as well, at Goodwood Way, Fitzroy Street. Yeah. And they said, "Oh, we want to show you something." So I said, "Yeah, sure." So then brought me to Robertson, and there was this little restaurant called the Fontaine. And it was on the market, and Dad said, because he was going to buy a farm out Piketberg or someplace, Portable, between Piketberg and Portable, for an apple farm. And I said to him, "You know what?" I said, "The farming is seasonal. Going to a restaurant or hotel," I said, "I can work with you guys. We can do something." So we ended up buying a place called Advertise here in Robertson. And as much as you want to do creative, and as much as you want to be creative, but steak and chips is a winner. Eh? You can do what you like. It's, you'd bring this out. You'd say, "But try this." It's you'd have a vol event with a great creation. And I say, "Never, but I'm going for my steak and chips, donkey." That's what it was. And so you've got to dictate to the market. I love the creative side. I enjoy that. That's where I told you I help out in the guest farms out here. And that's what and then the pictures, the photo, that you create on the plate. I enjoy that. Here now, what I've got, this little pub, but these acts love their, what are they? They love their steak. They love their chicken strips. They love it's the palate dictates the market, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it's almost back to basics. And if that's what sells, as you say, that dictates the market, then that's what you go for. It's as simple as that. Yeah, I don't think really, apart from the 1%ers up there, they want to see the 20 things on the plate, but mostly ons boereseens, we want to walk in and we want to eat vleis, rice and aardappels.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
That's it. And I mean, what they consider pork to be as a vegetable. That's it. Unless it's spare ribs.
Yeah, I must say, I grew fond of pork here in Ireland. As you know, I live in Ireland. I say here the sheep and the cattle, they have such restful, easy lives that you always see them lying down. They don't have to. They can get up and walk a meter further, and there's good. So the meat is always tender. The meat is really, really, really good quality meat here. But of course, they export the best over wherever to Europe. But I must say, I do miss a good snoek braai and a kreef op die kolle. I do miss that.
And I look at you got me on the snook, but on the crayfish, give me a crab. I'd much rather eat the crab, curry crab from the other coast. That's yeah. No, it's no. Look, it's saying that we're going back on off the subject again. I spent 5 years, 7 years establishing a game farm out here. It was more of a sabbatical. I'd gone into some business. I'd gone bankrupt too many times, and I thought, luckily, I needed 5 years out in the sticks just to clear my mind. And I've got a couple of sheep, and I used to graze them on the veld here, and I'd run them off at night on harbour oats, because the natural vegetation is very, very arid. It's mostly because of 300 years of overgrazing. So I mean. And the bush that she has, it's got a resin in it, so the animals can't really eat it. They can't really digest it. However, they do nibble the young leaves and so forth, and that does flavor the meat, and that's where the karoo comes in. And I tell you, that sheep with that fat, we taste the sticks in it. It's probably you'll never have that meat anywhere in the world except for here locally. It's yeah.
My first father-in-law, just let's call him that, he farmed up Philippolis way, and he taught me about bossy skaap, and that's what they eat, and it's delicious, as you say. It really, really delicious. Not lamb, skaap.
No, it's skaap. Yes.
Walk for its food for a few years before you eat that thing, because it's good, really excellent stuff. So I know a little bit about bossy skaap, just a little bit.
But I mean, it's that, what's the name? It's that, everybody says it's got to be lamb, That's bullshit. Lamb is tasteless. I don't like lamb. Give me skaap. It's got it in the sticks. Yes, but even that, so it's got to have that flavor. You want to taste the meat. That's what you want to do. But also saying that, I came a cropper. I went to Afghanistan to go and do a restaurant and a coffee shop. Opened it up for them at one of these expat camps. And I was with a company called Global Peace Logistics. And now when you drive through Kabul, for that matter, you'll have they've got the game. I mean the carcass is hanging on the side of the street, and then you come and take your piece. But the breed that they've got there is this Persian breed, so it's got thin legs, but it's got a fat tail. And this guy that was traveling with me, I said to him, "But we need one of those sheep. I want some kayangs. I want kayangs." So speak to the driver. I want kayangs. I want to make, the fat kayangs, and I want kaboom millies, lekker. And so speak to the Afghan stops. They go get me these tails. It gets me 4 tails. Few sterren, dik sterren. And when I came into the van, Klant, it stank. So I said to the one guy, one of our bodyguards, I said to him, because he was sitting in the back, we were driving in a vehicle similar as the Prado. It's called Forerunner, Toyota Forerunner. He was sitting in the back, close to the back door. I said, but just keep this as close to the door as possible and open all the windows because it stinks. So when we got to base camp, I took out this thing. And now if you know Namaqualand, okay, where my mother's from, there you help people what can skoon slag, with a knife, if I opa's farm, a man what can skoon slag, you kept him up in quite a, you viewed him in quite a high esteem, you know what I mean? But these oaks couldn't, and it was dirty. It was fail geslag. Yes, so there was all kinds of dirt on these tails, and I scrubbed them and I put them in vinegar and I took them out and I scrubbed them again and I put them in vinegar, trying to get that smell away. And then I started cutting them, and then I came across, but this thing was full of kliere. What do you call them? What's the English word for kliere? Would they be glands?
Yeah, the glands.
Because what happens is, with all the poison that it's been eating, now these things have been grazing out in Kabul. Here and there, there's a pasture, but most of the time there's just litter. So these things would be grazing all kinds of stuff, would be eating all kinds of stuff, and these glands would be taking all the stuff that the body doesn't, the stuff that the body rejects would create these glands all over the place. So upon me opening up this, cutting these, they were just full of these dirty little glands. But now, if you remember, and Oda, as you know, a skaap geslag het, you always used to take that in the blood or in the boat. You always cut the kliere out, nee. And now you got it. Now in this thing, it was just full of kliere, and I thought, no, guys, I'm not gonna make this thing. I just rolled them up and I went to put them back in the freezer somewhere, and I said, no, don't worry about it. You won't enjoy the South African cuisine. So, yeah, but it was great. Yeah.
How long did you do that trip?
I went for, my plan was, I was on a farm. The farm wasn't developed. I had big plans for the farm, but then the farm owner of the farm, he decided that he was putting more money into Langebaan, development, house development. Yeah. So there was no future on the farm. So I decided, then a post came up in Afghanistan. So I applied and I went up there. Now, I had an 8-year plan. It was an 8-year plan to get to Afghanistan, work, operate the place a bit, save up some money, and then I want to drive back. That was my plan. I had a lekker plan for it. I set up the restaurant. I went there at the end of October, 2015. End of October 2015, I went there. Now the place was Camelot Hotel and it was across the road from the Kabul International Airport, and I would be also next door to the Baron Hotel, and then on the other side was the Camp Solomon, which was an American camp that they had that was there. A lot of their logistics was done from their logistic management personnel. So it's we opened. It was November. I started getting. I went into Kabul. I mean, I worked with Afghans. Great people. Love them to bits. I really do. Great. They're good people. Anyway, so I went and got furniture, got everything, set up the restaurant, set up a coffee shop down the road, down at the bottom there. We opened up the restaurant in, it was on Christmas Day, I think, 24th, Christmas Eve, 24th of 2015. 5th of January, now I met a guy from Albania, or Papas. Him and I used to go for coffee every night at around 6 o'clock. And I said to him, and so we'd have our coffee at the coffee shop, which was down at the bottom. I was on my container that had the restaurant in it was on the second floor, and then above me was a hairdresser. So Papas and I would go for a coffee at the coffee shop at 6 o'clock every evening, just to discuss things. He was in charge of the security of the complex. Then I think it was on the 5th of January. It started raining, so I said to Papas, "Listen, but I'm not going to make coffee tonight. It's coming down." And I went and sat in my restaurant. I put the laptop up. I was just going to start talking to people in South Africa via email, etc. And all of a sudden, now there was a bomb the day before at a traffic circle not far from the camp. And what happens when they bomb? Then there's always then the cops come around and they start firing shots to disperse the crowd. And that's what they do. So when this, so I was aware of the bombs. There'd been it was probably the third. Okay, now this was now on the 5th of January. So now I'm sitting there, and I was just relaxing, and all of a sudden I just I remember distinctly hearing the bomb. Well, I did, and then I went flying, and then we were blown up. Came out of there with a cut. So the bomb, Papas started, he sorted that shit out. I'll tell you about it. It's a long story in any case. So we sorted out the restaurant again, and on the 14th of February, we were ready to open up for Valentine's Day, because there was a lot of expats there, and they were keen on the Valentine's Day. We were just about to open up when the guys that were still fixing up the complex, they were welding there, and there was no fire extinguishers, and the welding started a fire, and it burnt everything to the ground. So I spent another 4 or 5 months in Afghanistan cooking for the expats on top of a roof, looking down on Kabul and all those places, and then we'd have a party up there for came back in August 2016.
Yeah, that place is not for the faint-hearted. That's definite.
If you, there's always timing. Timing is everything. And South Africans in that country are expats. The South Africans have a reputation of being. They reckon all the South African needs is a what do you call these cloaks that Superman has, and then he'll be a superpower. Why? Every security company, if it didn't have a South African in the security company, it wasn't worth using. The South Africans have a great reputation. The night that we had the bomb, these acts are screaming and shouting. And it doesn't help if you scream and shout when you're having these things. You've got to stay calm and bring everybody into one shelter. But with the amount of screaming and shouting by the people that were involved in the security, I'm not going to point any fingers. There was a lot of panic taking place all over the place. So then they landed up. They said, "Hey, Zane, go clear out the buildings." I said, "What? I'm the chef." He says, "But you're South African. You can handle that." And I thought, okay. I said, "Give me a rifle, we can sort this out." But I said, "No." And then I said to my dad, I said, "It was the only time I ever regretted not getting my British passport. I've never regretted it since. And I will never, because I'm a South African. I love being South African." But however, with that bomb, all of a sudden here come the American forces or the British forces, and they want to take all the British and all the American citizens out of there. So I'm left there with my friend from Kyrgyzstan, another friend from Albania, a couple of, a whole bunch of us. I said, "Okay, guys, well, follow me. We'll go to the next hotel. We'll find a place to stay." And so I had to take charge of the situation. Right? That's what the South Africans do, and it's great. Beautiful. Yeah. Anyway. You know what? It's as much as you try and sell it, as much as you try, but these guys are different. You must come to the Boerland. You know, it's different. There's a bigger story behind that. Anyway. What I do, I enjoy Portuguese cuisine. I love it. I have a friend that's got a guest farm out here, and I work on a lot of East Portuguese stuff in it, and I love it. And now with that steak, egg, and chips, what I do is with that steak, I do it in a bit of a little bit of chilies, a garlic, a wine, a lot of butter, a lot of olive oil, and then that goes onto a roll, and then on that comes those two eggs. And it's not chips anymore, it's baby fries, but small potatoes, and you do them and you fry them, and that's what it goes. And that's,
well, you've just given me an idea there for the summer. It's too cold to fry presently. I save all my energy now for the Christmas special. Yeah, no, that sounds terrific. That really sounds good.
that deboned leg of lamb or mutton leg, when you debone it and you flick it on the braai, and then you do it on the fire. It's beautiful. It is magic. Yeah.
I usually don't debone it.
Well, we got you in the picture here.
It's okay, Alex.
Hello.
It's my mom. I come here. I got to pop in at mom's house once a day at least. Otherwise, yes. I get the clap.
Yes.
So
you got to look after your mammy.
So I've got to be here every day.
Yeah. No, look, Zane, I'm cognizant of the fact that time is tight, and you're 2 hours ahead of me, so you'll probably have the hungry Boer come knocking there for lunch. So I'm going to say thank you so much for spending the time with us. And as per always, I'm going to say, until we meet again, internet, God bless.
Thank you, Fossey. And guys, regards to all the South Africans out there, and they miss this country, I promise you.